Well, hello, that's me again, and today is Sunday, May 15th, and there is a reason I make this video on Sunday, because a number of the headlines caught my eye. But before we proceed to discuss those headlines and basically what is behind them, I want to introduce you guys to interesting, so to speak, thing, the ideas, the thoughts of some former U.S. Officer, Colonel Atkin, who 23 years ago wrote, not wrong, not at all. I mean, there are many things of the value which he wrote about. The article, which is well known, and you can find it on the any kind of browser. Just Google "Why Arabs Lose Wars." I introduced the headline here from very neocon and pro-Israeli Pipes, David Pipes, son of Richard Pipes, famous Russophobe and falsifier of history, but it doesn't matter. The point is just what is he writing about, Colonel Atkin. And many things about Arab militaries which he writes there are absolutely legitimate, and believe me, I know. But in the middle of all that, and of course, trying to relate his experiences with the Arab militaries, which I know a little bit, by the way, I had my own, so to speak, brushes, in a good sense, with them. He comes up with that thing. Read attentively. To really understand Arab political and military elites, the Arabs too felt an affinity for the Soviet officer class, contempt for ordinary soldiers, and the Soviet military hierarchy, distrust of well-developed, well-appreciated, well-rewarded NCO corps. That thing actually is very important. This quote which I produced here is very important, because at some point of time this was the overriding, so to speak, point of view in the US military too, which never really learned about Soviet military much. I mean, make no mistake, Sovietology as a science was not a science. It was just another iteration of the political science, and criminology, Sovietology, it was mostly propaganda. Much of it was the open, absolute bullshit, and a lot what the US military and its officer corps knew about the Soviets, while definitely they knew some things which even today are classified, but for the most part they had a very perverted, Solzhenitsyn-ified, so to speak, picture of the Soviet military. Not to say that Soviet military didn't have the problems, it certainly did, especially at the level of the what is called kadrированные divisions. I mean, kadrированные cadre divisions, which means basically you had the basically staff of the division and a little bit of the personnel. The rest of it was pretty much non-existent, just the equipment, hardware. And it wasn't manned. It was designed to be manned in the case of mass mobilization, and then it will become a full-blown division. Yeah, the morale there was always low. Naturally, the relations between the officers and enlisted people were not very good. But for the most part, actually, the idea and attitudes towards the soldiers and by the Soviet officer corps, well, what do I know? I was the one, of course. Even considering some real problems which did exist in the Soviet military, were nothing like what this guy describes here. The only reason he describes it here this way is to demonstrate how much better the U.S. Army was, especially with this beaten to death cliche bullshit about NCOs. Yeah, Russians don't have NCOs. Actually, Russians, the Soviet Union and Soviet Army armed forces, they did have NCOs. They were called Michman, midshipman in the Navy, and Praporshchik, which is the literally banner carrier, NCOs in the military. But of course, Colonel Atkin and those people who were just spreading this BS, of course, they never heard about it. I'm being facetious, of course. So, and this is very remarkable thing, this quote, because it shows the degree of the both misinformation, condescension, contempt of those people who are writing about it, and as the result, it translates really well, bar some exceptions, and I already stated those exceptions. You know those exceptions, those like Colonel Douglas MacGregor, Larry Johnson, Scott Ritter, a number of other people like Daniel Davis and others who really tried to study, Soviet and Russian military, and of course, incomparable David Glantz and Jonathan House, colonels of the U.S. Army and truly magnificent military historians. But 90% of it was basically propaganda, and it's propaganda in such a way as to reflect how bad Soviets were and how good U.S. Army was. And of course, we have to keep in mind that all this Alkin article, again, much of which is very valid, there are some interesting things there, was written 23 years ago, and it was written under different circumstances and under different so to speak, geopolitical winds. Of course, today is 23 years later. We are completely different. And here it comes to what I wanted to talk about, that how the ignorance and basically lack of understanding, because if they would understand, they would never have gotten the United States into this situation with the Ukraine and elsewhere, and being constantly surprised when, being hit back and, having basically, ass handed to them. So, and that's the other thing. Today, famous Russian news aggregator, and I don't like their materials, personal materials, so to speak, but generally speaking, they provide a good aggregate news service, vzglad.ru, and they post today the basically opinion of the former Russian Soviet officers who are obviously very much still close to people from general staff and, the service people who some of them are still serving. So, and this headline reads that the plan of the Azov Nazi battalion approaching of the border with Russia belongs to the United States. And here's the thing. Yeah, the plan was basically that on the 8th of March and the operation by VSU and starting attack on the on Eldonere republics. That's why Russians started their operation on the 24th of February to forestall this whole thing. Was such that, because Azov was trained by Pentagon and by UK, all those thugs, they were well trained. They're basically SS, unit formation, and it was obviously not battalion, as I already stated. It's brigade size. Military formation, and of course there is other, so to speak, adjacent, if you wish, services and organization to it, which make it basically the whole organization. And it is assessed essentially by its nature. It's very Nazi. It's so they are definitely admired by some people in Pentagon and especially in UK. And yeah, they thought, okay, we prepared them, we trained them, and they get to Russian border, in the first phase of the attempt, offensive. And they get to Russian border, and then, create this situation in such a way that Russia also feels they're threatened, and thus, limited in its actions when it has that kind of force in its border. Especially near, for example, such large urban centers as either Belgorod or not far from Rostov or what have you, So it was that plan. So, and it's clear that people who created this plan in Pentagon, they're not really good. Well, and here's the thing. I was very often actually accused that, you have the corporate, company type thing, and you don't want to insult or offend people, American military. Well, of course I don't, I always honestly say about the magnificent qualities of, for example, American soldiers or American sailors. I admire the magnificent history of the U.S. Navy, but modern Pentagon is not that good in terms of planning. Actually, frankly, it hasn't been good for a while, okay? And do you want to go back to Vietnam? We certainly can go. So, and of course, there is this kind of, discrete moment, so to speak, of the first Gulf War, where for half a year they were allowed, basically, coalition troops were allowed absolutely with impunity to collect, to aggregate, and assemble and redeploy all forces necessary, and then beat the crap out of the really Arab army. And again, read what I spoke about and mentioned about of Colonel Atkin, because many things he wrote about Arab militaries actually are shared by, were still are shared both by Soviet and Russian militaries. It takes quite an effort to, shake down the Arab military, and as you can see yourself now, Syrians definitely are learning now, big time, So, and they are improving, but that was then. And that brings us to this situation of the planning. Obviously, the people who are planning that Azov and some VSU parts can reach Russian border. Granted, they will, obliterate this resistance by the Donetsk and Lugansk militias, and that Russia will be standing still and not doing anything. They really had issues with understanding how modern Russian military works and how modern Russian state works. And here's my point. Those people, including from the CIA and, and again, they don't know. They had this absolutely bizarre virtual reality about Russia and about Russian military, about Russian doctrine, about everything basically, especially thanks to a lot to the so-called Soviet and Russian immigration, which got incorporated into the intelligence and military circles. And I already mentioned one of such lady, Rebecca Kofler, who was working for NSA, I believe, and who basically having the teacher's background, the teacher of English language. She wrote a book, which is hilarious if you read it. And this is the book written by basically ignorant and incompetent people. But you have this basically strata of this immigration and dissidents who created this virtual reality of Russia with the weak army, with demoralized population, with poor people, with ongoing coup. And when you have the basically information from either directly from Ukrainians who basically lie all the time, and you have that type of the informational sources, you get this virtual picture. You have no real clue what you're dealing with. And that's, for example, why this plan with Azov reaching the Russian border is hilarious, because obviously it's written by incompetent people. And the incompetence is not only in the fact that it's, militarily it's ridiculous to start with, but the fact that politically and geopolitically it's absolute fantasy. I mean, they were literally thinking that Russia, because she is about to collapse due economic sanctions, well, I mean, they would be really stunned when they learn about the real story with Russian economy, which is quite opposite. And they thought that, let's plan, let's push this Azov guys and see, and then the VSU just goes in and captures the rest of the Eldonere republics. I mean, are those people for real, honestly? Did they study anything? I know there are some issues with West Point nowadays, and I know there are some issues with the U.S. Army and other naval and other war colleges. But, I mean, you cannot be that ignorant, you cannot be that illiterate militarily. And that brings us to the second, point, because which I was trying to make for a long time. And if you look at my older videos and previous videos, I'm talking about this, and I'm talking about this planning and all that. So, and here's the thing. First, I don't hold British press in high regard whatsoever. I don't think so. Even normal people, most of them work there. Their people are without any principles. Some of them probably human trash. Those people, they don't know, they don't have any morals, they don't have any understanding between right and wrong. And I'm talking about across the whole spectrum of British media, be that tabloids like Express or The Sun or Times of London or BBC. It's like, BBC is all, it's pedophilic station basically. They don't have really understanding of the normality, and in most part, those who do, as if you can find Colonel Wilkerson, who also is not very good, despite being the chief of staff of Colin Powell at some point of time. He's not very good about Russia. He doesn't know it. He doesn't understand how Russians really fight, what is Russian armed forces are. But at least in one of his latest interviews with, I don't remember, you can easily find it on YouTube, probably a couple of months ago, he was talking about the corruption and basically degeneration and decomposition of the Washington, D.C., and some of the interviewers asked him why people do not get up, why do not, they raise their voice, why do not they perform some courage, express some courage, to, stand up against, stand against this situation. And he was pretty mundane and correct, actually. That's the thing where he was absolutely correct. He said, mundane things, mortgages, families, salaries. You need to, indeed, if you are working in this government, obviously, the moment you raise your voice, guess what? You're kicked out. And then you probably even become unemployable in any sensible way. And you might end up working for the, what's the bottom line or basic or minimum wage somewhere. So, people are afraid of this. Not to mention the fact that, depending on the some organization, there always a danger that somebody will come and, you will fall on the knife 7 times in a row, So that also cannot be excluded. But for the most part, people are afraid to have their lives ruined. And that is why they just do not go out there and don't speak. They just, toe the line and try to get, to their retirement maybe. So, and it's a horrendous deal. It's the devil's deal, with your own consciousness, but it is what it is. So let's face it. But again, in terms of British, I think so many of them are general articles. They're just like freaking morons. And the Express today, it's another British tabloid. I don't think so. There are no tabloid. Everything British do in terms of media is tabloid, including their respectable, quote unquote. They're not respectable. They're also a bunch of morons. Globalist, Financial Times, The Times of London, as already stated. BBC, it's tabloid. It's basically, how to say it? They better have to concentrate on fashion, their royal family and things of this nature. Everything they write about, anything, military, technology, economy, is basically straight out, bullshit. But here it is. Here's the headline today about Ukraine exclusive. British fighters trapped in Mariupol still works on last stand. We'll talk about that last stand thing. And of course, it's written by some Marco Gianangeli, diplomatic editor, the guy who obviously have no freaking clue what real war is and what is happening in Donbass. But in all this article, in all this absolute, cascading, bullshit and support for Nazis, for SS, basically, that's what they are. Of the Azov battalion, the remnants of which are being annihilated as I speak, and which are corked in the Azov-style plant. Here discusses, the fate of another three British mercenaries, maybe cadre officers or maybe MI6 officers, we don't know. He discusses that, there are other, British guys there, and they're dying, they're doing the last stand BS, they don't do the last stand. They're basically, it's a little bit different than that. But he obviously writes about the fact that all those mercenaries, and, well, many of them, again, cadre officers, they basically send a message, and that's the message. All 3 lads in the steelworks served with British Army. I know 2 have seen service in Afghanistan, but like me, they were surprised at the intensity of the conflict, said 34-year-old veteran who served as a corporal with the rifles. No shit, geniuses. They wanted to see the real war. That's real war, guys. I mean, this is what the war is all about. And again, Russians do not conduct real war yet. They conduct special military operations, which is extremely selective, which is extremely cautious in terms of, not killing many civilians and, preserving infrastructure and trying to, even the VSU, they have a chances to sometimes surrender, and continue with a normal life. No, but of course these lads from Britain, the same as many American lads or any other lads who thought that they saw the war in Gulf War or they saw the war in Afghanistan, they didn't see the war. That's what I'm trying to convey constantly. That's not a war. When the only thing you face is maximum is RPG-7 and maybe IED. And it doesn't mean it still can kill you, make no mistake, but it's gonna kill you like, if you are in APC and there's some, significant ID goes off, you might even survive, you will be concussed dramatically, but you still can survive. And maximum you will, people you will kill from ID, which is like random thing, several people, that's about it. Real war is not about it. Real war is about being on the receiving end of the fire impact, which, for example, on area targets, such as the MLRS type of the tornado or smerch, they're not going to kill 5-6 people. It's going to kill 50, 80, maybe 120. And when these guys, who have been on safari, basically shooting those, Afghans and Iraqis, who carry the old AK-47s, and are in sandals, they suddenly get this. Oh my gosh, you have artillery working. Well, 152 millimeter or 155 millimeter thing, the shell, when it explodes, it's not nice. Even 30 millimeter things, when you're under the 30 millimeter not machine gun, automatic cannon fire, it's nasty, people. It's scary. It scares the shit out of you. Believe me, I know. I've been under 30 millimeter gun fire. Very unpleasant. So, and when people say that, oh, they didn't expect that this is the war, well, that's how real war looks. And of course, when Russia brings to bear the real firepower and will do the actual war and will take the cities, not the way as Russia is doing today, trying to avoid as many as casualties, because many of those people are actually Russians. Some of them are, dedicated Yukis, but many of those civilians are simple Russian people. Russians trying to do this with, soft gloves, soft touch, trying to preserve as much as possible. But when you get onto the real thing, that is why, for example, if you look attentively again, if you're not following, of course, UK propaganda and how Ukraine wins Russians every day, truth is, Ukraine today loses on the average of 1 battalion a day. Killed, wounded, MIAs, and and I already posted on my blog some videos of the number of units of the VSU, which is basically refusing to be a cannon fodder. So it tells you the actual moral state of the morale, so to speak, in VSU today. And of course, when these guys who thought that, maximum you can get back is in response some 5.56 or 5.45 or 7.62 bullets, when you get on the receiving end of Iskander with 700 kilogram high explosive warhead, it's different. Okay, that's the real war. Actually, that's what war is about. It's not about shooting people who cannot really resist, and it's not going to the freaking front line, get shot at a little bit and calling in immediately close air support, and then you have those wonderful A-10 Warthogs flying in and demolishing whatever the hell is there. So no, the real war is when the opponent, the enemy, shoots at you with pretty much everything it got. And believe me, Russia has gotten a lot. I mean, probably the most fearsome firepower in the world. So, and now, you have these people who are saying that and complaining that, oh my God, it is a real war. Welcome to the real war. And obviously, when you look now at the cauldron, which is not really forming, it's pretty much formed, it's just a matter of how it's going to be closed on this two key points, one of which was, of course, you already saw yourself how the VSU demolished 2 Russian armies there, on this crossing of the river, which is complete fake and already have been debunked by everybody who has any brains left. And of course, from Popasna, that's basically, you can see two forces basically driving towards each other. And we don't know the actual number which is in this cauldron. We know that Lysychansk brigade was withdrawing there, moving to Severodonetsk, but then back again. So there's some movement there. They try to escape, obviously, but yeah, when you have very limited mobility or no mobility at all, there's very little you can do. And so we have to have big news coming from this cauldron very soon, if not already. Today already we know that there was a lot of reduction, quote unquote, of this thing. And that's what attracted me today to all of this. And the conclusion to all this talk, which I'm doing today with you guys, is a very simple fact. Obviously, Pentagon fucked it up, pardon my French, with the planning. I mean, they had some plans, they did have some understanding what was coming, but they really completely miscalculated on a strategic and operational level of what would be happening. And obviously, Mr. Austin, Secretary of Defense, calling Mr. Shoigu 2 days ago and demanding immediate ceasefire is, as my friend Larry Johnson says, and I pointed this out, this situation out too, is, let me read it for you. If Russia was losing or completely stuck in Ukraine, one would expect that Sergei Shoigu would be the guy calling Austin and begging for mercy. Well, that is not what happened. It was Austin that placed the call, apparently unconcerned about his recent public call to weaken Russia. Why would Austin urge Shoigu to implement an immediate ceasefire, quote unquote, if Russia was getting its ass kicked? Russia getting whipped by Ukraine is exactly what Austin has called for. Remember, if Russia is on the ropes, why call off the beating? You call off the fight when it's your guy getting pummeled. The Russian offensive in the Donbass has ramped up significantly in the last week, and it is carving up entrenched Ukrainian units with no hope of being reinforced or rescued by counter-offensive. Larry completely encapsulated it perfectly, and that's exactly what is happening. And as I already stated, people, I am beginning to really get annoyed by people who say, oh, what about timing? What about plan? First, nobody knows the plan except for the Russian general staff. Maybe a couple of the guys in CIA and Pentagon, if they're lucky, which I doubt they are. So nobody knows the timetable, because there no table has been set. And obviously, if you go to the economic news, which kind of accompany all those headlines, you will begin to understand why Russians are really not in any rush. I mean, because in the end, the demilitarization of Ukraine is demolition not only of the Ukrainian military-industrial complex and military capacity, which is armed forces, basically, it is also the fact of putting the European Union on the knees, which was confirmed today because European Union and allowed those companies to open accounts in the Gazprom Bank and pay both in rubles or in currency, which Gazprom Bank will convert to rubles and then will release the fuel. And of course, they cannot do shit, pardon me, about anything about oil embargo. It's just physically impossible. And well, Russians know it. And again, I say, you know what, not because I'm Russian, but because, between the Pentagon and Russian general staff, in terms of planning, my bets are on Russian general staff. And, they're just better than that. They're really good. Because if you look at Russian history, you will see yourself why. And that was the talk I was willing to talk to you, so to speak, today. So, as always, guys, my profound thanks to my patrons and those who can afford, obviously. Please support me on Patreon and subscribe to my channel. You might get more videos of this nature, and I will be talking about force multipliers and Lanchester models and other combat models, including salvo models, very soon. So, and that is it for today, guys, and have the nice rest of your Sunday. Bye bye.